Welcome to Transformed and Transformational, the TeachBeyond podcast. I'm Kian.
And I'm Heather. We're here to explore what it means to be transformed in our own lives and how that overflows to living lives of transformational impact in our communities.
Today on the show, we are privileged to have an amazing couple joining us. They are the lead facilitator of the Sparrow Project and the national director of Tanzania. They have such an interesting story, and you can really hear how God was present throughout their lives.
You know, I just love hearing stories of the many ways that God directs someone over the course of time. And, as we begin a new job or a volunteer opportunity, or even just as our lives intersect with other people's lives, we don't have the whole picture of what God's doing or how that might end up playing into another chapter in the future. And so it's just inspiring to kind of pause and look back and see what God's doing in someone's life and know that he will be continuing to work in that.
For sure. It's always encouraging to hear as you're going through something in the present day, knowing that this will look different when you look back on it, realizing how it all unfolded.
Having that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Our guests today are Emmanuel and Ruth Mbennah. They've held many different roles over the years before they crossed paths with TeachBeyond only a few years ago.
Ruth is a trained teacher with a master's in linguistics and experience in various levels of education from primary to higher education. Emmanuel has worked in communications and various strategic leadership roles, and he holds PhDs in communication science and biblical studies with a focus on the New Testament. Collectively, they have worked with well-known nonprofits World Vision and Compassion International, as well as several universities and Trans World Radio.
Ruth and Emmanuel have lived in Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, where Emmanuel served as the ambassador to Zimbabwe and Mauritius from 2019 to 2022. They have 7 grown children and 8 grandchildren living in several different countries.
Ruth and Emmanuel have an amazing vision for their country and are faithfully using their gifts to serve in their context.
Let's go over to that conversation now.
Welcome to the podcast, Emmanuel and Ruth.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to have this conversation and to get started and just hear your story. But before we do, I know that you guys have an exciting story very recently. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing just this past weekend that you just got back from?
Yes, we attended a consecration of a new bishop at a place called Kiteto, 4 hours drive from Dodoma where we live, on a rough road, which my daughter, Sophia, calls it Tanzanian massage, because as you drive on that one, you really get massaged. So we attended the consecration, which was attended also by the Prime Minister of Tanzania and a bishop, the Bishop of Leicester in the UK, who is a member of the British Parliament. So and then on our way back, we had a flat tire, so it took another 40 minutes to get it changed. And finally, we got home to our home village where we spent the night. And then this afternoon, we came back to town.
It was raining, and we were stuck in the mud somewhere, and we were only 2, but we managed to go out.
Wow, yeah. Nice. Always an adventure, right? Those travel adventures, never a dull moment. Well, as we're just beginning, maybe we can set the stage with hearing a little bit about what your role is right now. Then we'll take some time to go back, hear a little bit about how you got there, and then where you envision going. So just as we start, what are each of your roles right now with TeachBeyond?
I am Sparrow Project facilitator, lead facilitator for Tanzania. And we just started last year. We started with 1 cohort that is almost graduating this year. Sparrow Project is about transformation, to work with teachers, especially to build the capacity of teachers. And we just identify some schools for that program. So we have 6 units that we train. And then after the 6 units, then we give them certificates. So this year we started with about 17 teachers. And these are local teachers. We started with 1 school that actually asked for us to train all their teachers. So
wow.
We started with 1 school, and then we have 1 teacher, 2 teachers from other 2 schools. So it's about 3 schools, but they are within Dodoma, except 1 School is located about I think 3 or 4 hundred kilometers, but they join us once we have the training.
Okay. Yeah. It's amazing to think about the impact that can come from having that cohort, and also to recognize that it doesn't have to be hundreds and hundreds of teachers to have an impact, that starting with those 3 schools in that, certain locale can then have that ripple effect. So that's great, Ruth. And Emmanuel, can you share a little bit about what your role looks like?
Yes, I am the national director of TeachBeyond Tanzania since April of last year. And right now we are working on the registration of the entity. So we have all the paperwork completed. And
Okay.
when we're about to submit to the registration authorities, we advise that there are new regulations now.
Ah,
They want an office established, set
okay.
up, so
Like a
that
physical office.
so they can come and inspect and make sure it's a real organization. And the reason is very good. That the reason is that there have been many entities getting registered, but they are nowhere to be found. You cannot locate them, and they can do things, and they could not be held accountable because they are not entities, you know, um, with offices anyway. So now they require an entity to have an office with furniture, with all of that, and then invite the local leaders to come and inspect, give you a report, and then you can attach with your constitution and the bylaws and all those, and submit for it. So that's where we are. In fact, today they fitted the door and the curtains of the our temporary office. So we hope come next week, we want it repainted and all that, with the logo of Teach Beyond Tanzania, and then we can invite the local people come, the local leaders to come inspect, give us a report, submit the paperwork for registration. So we're working on that. We have a board already in place. We have had some meetings, especially last year. And of course, as national director, then I oversee all the other expressions of Teach Beyond work. So Spiral Project is one. We are developing partnerships, higher education partnerships, working one school to make it a family school. But also we are developing a learning center of our own, where we want to have some, we'll call them tutorials, or here we call them tuition. It's really the extra sessions, academic sessions, for learners who want to either excel or they want to go through remedial experiences. But those who are attending schools where we cannot have access to introduce transformation education. So we are using the need to have extra classes to actually do transformation education. And we are hoping to develop such a center. We have the plans, we have the land, and so we hope we'll have the money to finalize, complete the construction of the building in the course of the year.
It's such an exciting time. You've been in this role for about a year,
Yeah,
and there's still so much yet to come. You can see it, you can envision it. And so I'm so excited that we're talking to you right now to be able to hear what has brought you to this point, also recognizing that there's still much that is yet to come, and we're always in the middle of the story, right? That the Lord
yeah,
is
yeah,
continuing
very
to
much so.
write.
Yeah,
And there's so many different aspects to what a national director does, and you're painting a picture of the partnerships, the paperwork, the leadership, the involvement in local projects. So that's great.
Yeah, it's so good to hear how you are both responding to the needs in your community and in such
Mm,
important roles in such important spaces. And we want to hear more about what you're doing currently, but I'm so curious to hear how you got there. Kind of what
yeah.
the steps were that God brought you to get you to this
mhm.
point. So, could you maybe take us back to your childhood? I know you grew up in the same village you're in right now. So, kind of what was your childhood like in that village?
We grew up actually in the same from the same village, and we were going to different schools, but same village. When we come back from schools, we just find each other at the village, and we were both good Christians. For me, I was just a church goer before I came to Christ, and so I used to go to church. I loved church, and my parents were church goers as well. Until when I went to secondary school, high school, then that's where I found this group calling themselves born again Christians, and I didn't know what it meant. But when they explained to me, I just wanted, I just felt like interested to know about this Jesus who changes lives. So I decided to accept Christ, and then since then I just started seeing my life being changing every day.
From the village where we now reside and where we've been since the late 70s. Prior to that, we actually lived in different, so our younger childhoods were actually in different places. Where I was born and raised, which was until I was in my early 20s when we moved to the village where we now are. Where I was born and where I grew up, there was no church, there was no school, there was no hospital, there was no road going to the place. It was very remote, very much in the bush, and you had isolated homesteads. And the reason we moved there, my father moved there when I was born because uh, my father was the third of 8 siblings, and I was the 10th of 14 siblings. But some of my older siblings died, and they died in circumstances that seemed to be attributable to an individual. So when I was born, to save my life, my father decided they would move away from the rest of the Mbenahs and settled in this very remote area. So that's how I survived, and my four younger siblings survived. But this then was the very remote place where there's no school, no road to that place, no no church. So I didn't get to hear about church until I was 10, when um, a school, a teacher, and a portable chalkboard and some books were brought, and desks were brought and placed under an acacia tree to start a school. So my formal school started under a tree. For my first 3 years of formal education schooling was under a tree. It was in this very remote area. So talking of my early childhood, that phase of my childhood was really a tough childhood, away from exposure of the gospel and the possibility of education until much later when this very local school was started.
That's interesting. As you describe your parents having to move to protect your life, to save your life, did they have a high value on moving to the bush out into? Was that hard for them to know that there wasn't a good school around or a church around, or was
No,
that
no, they because no one had been to school. My one of my brothers was registered in school. He's 16 years older than me, so he was enrolled in a school before they moved. And because that time, my father and his brothers had a lot of cattle, and the thing to do for young people was to look after cattle, after cows and goats and all that. So going to school was not really the thing they would want. So my father went and persuaded the teachers to re-register my brother. So he went as far as grade 3. So there was no one who had been to school in the family, until my time, and so going away from where there was a school and going into the bush, that was just a very important step to make to save my life, and no regret because there was nothing that was being lost, so to speak.
Ruth? Was education important in your family as you were growing up?
Luckily, my father was an educated person, not with degrees, and but he was, at least he went to school. And my mom did not really go to formal schools, but they knew the value of education.
Correct.
So we both we all of us, we just went through formal school. And after that, because my father used to work with the government, and he used to to travel, and sometimes to just he would just be to transfer from one place to another. And so that is how we got to be enlightened and just to see the other part of the world, how it is. But still, it was in the rural area. And the life was just almost the same from one place to another. But because of that small part of my parents to know the value of education, then we all went to school. We were born 11 of us, and I'm the second born.
Well, you've both ended up in education now. So this has become a big part of your own stories. And I'm curious, as you look back, how that shaped, each of your respective upbringings and how you experienced education. How has that shaped you being involved in education?
Yeah, no, no. For me, it's a very strong statement that no matter the circumstances in which one grows up, education can bring, it can redefine the destiny of the person. Education is key. Education is possible, and people, regardless of where they're born and where they're raised, they have the potential to pursue education. Education can make the whole life. So that even in my time, our time during my Compassion International role as country director for Tanzania, I became very passionate about children in need because the focus of compassion is children in poverty. And I became very passionate about those children because I knew they had the potential and there was all the possibility to rise from the circumstances in which they were growing up. So it shaped my conviction of the value of education in transforming people. Obviously, I have since come to know not just any education that can transform people, but a particular kind of education will bring even the more desirable transformation.
Emmanuel, I love how you're distinguishing that it's a certain kind of education that can have the most impact, or that can have that lasting impact. What would you say are some of the traits of that kind of education that you're talking about?
Yes, I was fortunate to be enrolled in a school under the tree, where the teacher, even though not a very committed Christian, would read to us the Bible. So I saw the Bible. In addition to teaching us how to read and write and speak and all that, he would also read stories from the Bible. And I saw the Bible for the first time when I was 10 in the hand of that teacher. And I heard the first words read from the Bible from the lips of that teacher, even though he was not a believer, but he was a church person, and somehow he exposed us to the word of God. So with that, then that school, the story didn't go far enough. That school was closed down because of the environment. It was just unbearable for the teachers. There had been another teacher brought. There were two of them, and it was too tough for them. So they went and did some lobbying, and the school was closed down. But by the time they closed the school, I already had the seed of the word of God and a longing to know more. And for me, that was providential because the teacher had reached as far as he could get us to know anything about God. And if the school didn't close, maybe that is as far as we would have gotten to. But it was the teacher who had the Bible also on his hand. And then, of course, the story, very moving. I had to run away from home to go look for a school. And in this new school where I went, that's where I found a boy 2 classes younger, behind me, and 2 years younger. And in fact, I met him yesterday and we had big hugs as we reminded ourselves. So he became a pastor. So I told him I wanted to be a Christian. I had a longing, and he told me, "Oh, just get baptized." And how do I get baptized? He said, "Oh, my father is a catechist. He can go through baptismal classes, and then you get baptized. You choose a name," which I went over that. But still, even after my baptism, I only had a temporary feeling of being new for a week. After that, I said, "But I'm still the same. So what is lacking?" And then with the search for the next 18 months, I gave my life to Christ. I'm saying education, I was fortunate to have the teacher who also had a heart to expose us to the Word of God. And then somehow God used that to propel me into a further search. If I had only had the education other than without the Bible, it would have been any education, but maybe not as impactful as it turned out to be with my experience. So you need education, but one that acknowledges and makes the space for the learner to encounter the exposure to the gospel so they can change.
I have so many questions for you about your story, and then I want to ask Ruth about the Sparrow Project and how you're training up teachers to do that, to have the Bible being a part of the education in the classroom. You said you ran away from home in order to keep going to school. I'm curious to hear more about that story and kind of what that deep desire was to persuade you to that leaving home and school, like when they were in conflict, how you chose school.
Yes, when the school had been closed down and there was no school to go to, we were in school vacation, school holidays in December. We are expecting to go into grade 4 in January, and then we hear there's no school to go to. I'd been the best boy in class for the 3 years. I had enjoyed the prestige of being the best, you know. But I think that is just providential. God used that to make me desire for more education. So when I heard that there was no school to go to, there was a feeling of agony within me. So I mean, how can I, stop here? I want school. What do I do? And on one day, there was some issue with my father and my mother. They were great friends. They loved each other, but for some reason, again, that for me that was providential. They had a little quarrel. They not before, not since, but that particular time they quarreled, and they sent me to call my uncle, come and reconcile them, which I did. And when my uncle came, my mother's brother came, and as they were sitting to resolve the issue, something like a spark came into me to say, go. So I went through the thorny fence around our homestead and went into the bush and walked along, I don't know, maybe I would say maybe 16, 20 kilometers uh, along the bush so that I'm not seen by anybody. I don't want to be met by neighbors so they are able to say, you suspect or tell my parents we saw him going this direction, like that. So I just went. I disappeared from home, and then I went to the very place where I was taken away when I was a baby. And then went there. I had not been told the story until then. So I went there and I found my cousins. They were telling me about their school. I want to go to school, but I must hide from all the adults. My uncles, my aunts. I don't want them to suspect I want to go to school. So when my cousins were boasting, say, we have a very nice school. It has louvers, windows, nice. So come and see our school. So, in the pretext of going to see the school where my cousins are attending, I followed them, and on arrival, I actually entered into the class. So, it was this longing, really agony. How can I stop going to school? You know, but I think that was all orchestrated by God because I think he had big plans, and those plans included my having that education route. So I went there and I walked into the class, and there was this teacher, and she comes in and says, "Oh, who is this?" And I didn't look good. You can be sure I didn't look good. I looked like a very much a street boy. I had not had any bath for I don't know weeks. I didn't have any combed hair. I had very long nails, and I didn't look good. I didn't. I was not dressed properly. Uh, but I didn't care. So I went into the class, and the teacher comes, "Who is this?" And the other kids look at me. No one, even my cousin who was in that class, did not show that he knew me. So, so the teacher said, "Who are you?" I told her. I gave her my traditional name, Maluko. Um, I was not baptized, so that was my name with my grandfather's name. So I said, my name is Maluko. I was attending the school in this place. It has been closed down. I've come here to look for a school. And one of the miracles happened in my life was that day because then after the class session, she said, "Follow me." I followed her to the office, and she said, "Yeah, go see the headmaster." I went into the office of the headmaster, And the headmaster pulled the attendance register. He didn't ask me too many questions. How do we know this is a class you should be attending? He just said, "What's your name, young man?" I mentioned my name, and he enrolled me. That very simple. That was a big day for me, and I am in school. I'm in school. It was a celebration for me. Even today, it still is. So then that evening, I go back with my cousins. The next day, I go to school for the 5 days. During the 5 days, went back there home, looking for me. They think maybe I've been attacked by an animal or something like that. Um, During the 5 days, two major things happened. One, I became the best boy in class, top. So answering questions, getting the highest marks in the test and things. 5 days, and then secondly, I spoke to this teacher. I said, I have run away from home to look for school. My family is going to do everything possible to get me out of school. Please help me. And she understood the story. And sure enough, Friday night, my brother comes. We were with my brother today. He came from the village with him. He's a nice man. He's 85. He's not young. So he came and he said, "Oh, he disappeared from home. We're looking for him. He needs to go back home." So my uncle told him, I had attended school for a week. They had better not play with government. He must take me to school, speak to the teacher, maybe they can deregister me. And he takes me to school on Saturday. We meet this teacher, and guess what? The teacher is so ready for him. He says, "You know what? I don't want to speak to you. Take the boy to the village, but on Monday, I want him and your father here." And so we go to the village, and Monday morning, my father was a very nice man. He just didn't know his best was in his world. The best for us was to be home. But okay, so he takes me to school on Monday, and he meets this teacher, and the teacher tells him two things. This is 1972. It's not yesterday, but it's very fresh. And the teacher tells him, "Let this boy attend school. Someday you'll be grateful." Number one. Number two, she says, "If you stop him from coming to school, I'll take you to court." so, so my father had no choice. So he decided to support me and looked for a place near the school, and I stayed there, and that's how I went past standard three. Uh, Big story. I would have stopped at grade three. So more can be said, but I went through primary school. Then I had teachers help me with the uniform. I had my first pair of shoes made out of worn out car tires bought by a teacher in 1972. That was my first pair of shoes, not really proper shoes, but that is kind of sandals that. So I had all the friendship of teachers, and then also I had this interaction with Emmanuel, and I got baptized, got into the church, all of that. So so that is the story. That's the story of my school journey. And then of course I do my primary school. We do the national exam. Only two of us from a class of 45 are selected to go to secondary school, and the rest stop there. And then on and on, O level, A level, university, and all that. I celebrate telling this story because I see the hand of God in my life. I would not have been so
Absolutely.
lucky, just lucky. I would not have been just so clever and so fortunate. No, there was a hand of God behind all this. It would never have happened, I think, that way. It was Him.
It's amazing to hear these stories and hear how God, is working. So I don't want to say subtly, but just how his hand is present in all the different moves and all the different things that happened. And putting those teachers, the teacher who really vouched for you and wanted you to be in the class. And Ruth, I'm so curious, as you're working in the Sparrow Project, training teachers and how to be Christians in the classroom, how do those work together? How does this story interact with what you're teaching training teachers to do today in your Sparrow projects, in the Sparrow Project?
My life started changing when I received Christ as my savior. And that's when I was interested to share the gospel to everyone that I find. And at that time, I didn't know how to integrate the Bible in the teaching, because I was a teacher, very nice teacher. But when I went to the university, I was just using the Bible, just one verse, and pray for the students. And I used to pray every day. And it was a Baptist university. That's why they could allow me to use the Bible or just to pray for my students. Otherwise, in the government here in Tanzania, you cannot do that unless you have a special permission to do that. So in 2023, when we had a conference in South Africa, TeachBeyond conference, that's when now uh, the 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 idea was becoming bigger and bigger, that I should now integrate the Bible in my all my teaching. And so when we started looking together, my husband and I, how we can impact lives in Tanzania, how we can bring this transformation idea to come very clear to the country, to our students, to our communities. And so we were very sure that this is what we needed, and this is what we need in Tanzania. Looking at our backgrounds, looking at how we grew up without this knowledge of the Bible. So when I listened to the conference, we just shared a lot of ideas, and I could just discuss with teachers. And then I said, wow, this is a great idea. So I think we can do this, because Sparrow Project is about transformation, or Teach Beyond is about transformation, and we want the teachers to know uh, the Bible and to be able to transform students, and also students can transform communities. So now we started looking at this together, and how to do it. And then when now I received the curriculum, I could see the directions. You just train these teachers, especially the first unit that we train is about worldviews, and the Bible is very clear worldview. And uh, and uh, we talk about the gospel story. So the gospel story is our strong uh, instrument when we talk about transformation. And so we when we train, we begin with that. We begin with worldview, and we look at maybe 3 or 4 worldviews, and then we look at the Bible, how the Bible can transform a person. How can a person say, I am educated, if you don't have the Bible that can transform you? So uh, we the gospel story. So when I started looking at the gospel story, I said, this is the tool, very strong tool to transform our teachers. So the Bible, we use the Bible because in every unit we have the Bible. We see how the life Jesus Christ was impacting lives around around communities. And so yeah, that's how we do. We just train, we integrate the Bible with what we are training.
Let's take a short break for our weekly spotlight.
This week, we are focusing on the Sparrow Project. If you want to hear more about the work that Ruth is a part of and how you can get involved, visit teachbeyond.org/Sparrow Project or click on the link in the show notes.
And now back to our conversation. Sounds like both of you are mentioning the value of scripture in education, and that isn't just let's read a verse and move on, although that is some of how this was first used for both of you, that you saw, okay, reading the word and then moving on to the other subjects can be beneficial. It's not only that, and there's power in the story of the gospel, in the story of Jesus' life, and how that impacts our lives. And Ruth, it sounds almost like the Sparrow Project training is some of what you would have wanted earlier in your teaching, your teacher training. And so getting to be involved with that now is really kind of full circle for you to then be able to pass that on to other teachers. Can you back us up and how did you both first hear about Teach Beyond so that you would end up being at a Teach Beyond conference and hearing and learning about the Sparrow Project?
I was invited, and she came along, but we were invited because I was a board member of, now I had since become a board member of Teach Beyond South Africa through Open Schools. So Open Schools, Teach Beyond South Africa, and then coming to this conference, regional conference. And really that is when we got the exposure, a full understanding of Teach Beyond as an organization. And that's when we saw how the vision and the methodology or mission of Teach Beyond uh, lines so perfectly with a dream that we have had for more than 30 years. In the early 90s, having understood the value of education, we started different initiatives that we wanted at the local. One of them, we called it LESI, LESI, Local Education Support Initiative. That was meant to simply, in recognition of the value of education, support needed children and needed families to take children to school. So it was very much a personal, individual effort. Bring our resources together and support one, two, three, whoever to go to school. So local education support initiative. And it was really based on our conviction education is key to change, to personal change, to transformation. So, but not just education, there must be, we're answering the question, if education claims to have so much power to transform, why are we seeing educated people untransformed? So there must be more than just education. Because they say education, Nelson Mandela was saying, education is the most powerful tool you can use to change the world. And many people who have said the power of education to transform. And the question, which is really a paradox, why are we seeing well-educated, even highly educated people not transformed? If so, either the claims of education are false, or what is being given is not education, or maybe the claims are true, what is being given is true, but the manner in which is being given is not correct. So something is missing. That's why we're having educated people who are not transformed. And of course, in my biases, can we still say they're educated if they're not transformed? I would say maybe not. Maybe they have the knowledge and all of that, but maybe not educated. So the transformational bit, the use of education to transform lives and communities, was wonderful, beautiful music to us, because that has been the dream for many years. So really, that's how we came into Teach Beyond, and that's how we have embraced the vision, the mission. This is the kind of ministry that carries the mechanism that can lead to the realization of the promise of education.
I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what you are dreaming and imagining for Tanzania. You shared kind of how your vision just aligned really well with what you were hearing with Teach Beyond. I'd love to know where is this going? Where do you see the Lord leading you in this next phase?
If I were to sing a song, we used to sing all over the world, the Spirit is moving. We like to see the glory of the Lord. This is my way of saying we really would like to see transformed lives through education, but would like to see a transformed educational system that allows and pursues transformational education. So there is a global level, nationally speaking, the overall general level, the acknowledgement that true education must be transformational. If we can have that become the philosophy, the persuasion, the conviction. If we cannot, at the government level, at least every church-owned school, every individually owned school by people who are or can be followers of Christ, we want them to know this is a very unique opportunity for the transformation of communities through the gospel, using education. So, would like to impact schools, owners, managers, teachers. So, have the philosophy of transformation education become the the philosophy of education for for Tanzania, and then have the avenues of people accessing the knowledge, the capacity to offer such an education, and then have the learners access these opportunities to experience the transformation education. So it's really three levels: the global, the transformation philosophy and methodology, the redefining of what education is all about, and then the the offer, the people, the providers of education, uh, making sure providing the space and living with the commitment that education can only be education if it's transformational, and then actually make sure that happens to the learners. Uh, so a variety of ways, but we'd like to see we have the learning centers, not just one, learning centers to model what transformation education is all about. We'd like to see we have a school or we have schools that we have direct influence to model transformation education. Then we like to have family schools, we like to have partner schools where we have entry and space to be able to champion and to support and to sustain transformation education. And then, of course, all that is on a methodology. We want to see lives. Everyone who has access to education must have access to education that can transform their lives.
I love it. That is such a big vision, and I love the heart behind it, and just the hope you have for your country, for your area, and how you can see God working through education and kind of transforming the education system that you're in, that your students are in, your teachers are in. I'm so curious, as you have that vision right now in present day. I'm curious what you would go back and wish if you could tell your past self something. If you could tell yourself this when you were a kid, when you were starting out in the school system as a teacher, or in something else, what do you wish your past self could know at that point?
God has always had me in mind, and I was meant for such a time as this. I'm not a mislocation. No, I'm not. I'm not at the wrong place at the wrong time. I am a product of divine orchestration to be here now to do what I'm doing. And I need to then look back and say, oh, that is why this happened. Oh, that is why this happened. Oh, so God was in fact in the process to have me today. And I need to celebrate all the experiences I had, including being rescued from danger, to going to school and having this, and having all the people lined up to help, and even having my father understand the language of the teacher, all that. I was not just lucky. God was up to something, and that up to something was for today, for such a time as this.
That's so good. Ruth, how about you? What would you want to tell your past self?
Uh, I would just say, like Emmanuel, who has said God had a plan. And for me, I think God had a plan for me to become a teacher. uh, what I have done throughout my life and up to now, I see all the channels that I was going through, that God was preparing me to become the best teacher, transformed teacher who can transform the society. So that's what I could see, because uh, I didn't want, I wanted to become a teacher, but then I didn't know how I can just study, become a teacher, or for maybe, higher education, or but then what I see, the way I studied without any support, but just my husband supporting me, and even sometimes speaking to me some prophetic words so that I become, up to now, I just see that it was God's plan for me to become a teacher, and especially where I am now. I think that's what God wanted me to land here and just impact lives.
Well, you both, I'm sure, have so many stories you could share in addition to the ones you've shared of your own growing up, just how you've seen God at work in your ministry in the last year. But can you tell us a quick story that has been inspiring to you lately?
Yeah, so there are so many outcomes that we see now, like me in class, and as we train these teachers, and teachers coming to us confessing that I was not like this. Now I can see myself changing. Like the use of corporal punishment. There was a teacher who came and said, "From today, I will not use a stick to my children, to my students." So for me, that is transformation already. And also to see teachers coming to the Lord, and that is transformation. And yesterday I was having a conversation with the head teacher of that school. I mean, the head school. And he says that my school has changed. And I can see those teachers who are very stubborn, they were very harsh. Today, they are no harsh. They are not harsh anymore. So for me, I see this is transformation. And we are eager to hear more.
Hmm. It's amazing hearing those stories already and recognizing that there is transformation happening, both methodology, like the way that they're teaching, as well as their own personal faith in Jesus. And so that's really inspiring. So many doors of opportunity opening there. That's really neat. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are many openings now. I know there are many openings coming, and even in the training, in the conferences that we are being asked or invited, like the women trainings that sometimes they ask me to train them, I integrate some kind of Sparrow project techniques or strategies, and they are so excited. And that is how I want to transform, I mean, to the gospel to transform every group that I meet when I train using strategies, Sparrow project strategies.
Thank you so much. Those are such powerful stories and being able to hear and find out about the opportunities that exist there. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Emmanuel and Ruth, for coming and having this conversation with us. It's so
Yeah.
powerful to hear how God is working in your area. We
Mhm.
have one final question before we let you go, and that is, what is one thing that's changing your life right now? So this can be something really big, something small. You're able to kind of take it where you'd like. I'll go first, and then Heather, and then you guys can both answer to kind of give you some time to think about it. So it's changing my life right now. Is I've kind of joined an online book club of sorts where we are able to read books and just discuss kind of the topics we're reading, the discussions about different books we're reading, recommendations, things like that. And it's been really fun and encouraging. It'd be great to do it in person, but in the meantime, I have online friends that I'm doing
That's
this with.
great.
So it's been fun.
Did
Yeah,
you find the friends first or the book first?
the friends first.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, good question. Good question.
Yeah. What's been changing my life is just recently I visited a friend from university who I hadn't seen in a while, and she has two boys. I had met the first one, but the youngest one I hadn't met yet. And I was in her wedding, but I didn't know her husband very well because they had met after college. So it was just a really neat opportunity to spend some time just living life with their family and meeting their youngest son and really getting to know her husband and her older son a little bit better. So it's fun to see friends from other seasons of life that you can kind of just pick up where you left off. So that is what's changing my life lately. What about you two?
Well, what is changing my life is actually the techniques that I study in Sparrow Project curriculum.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is really changing my life because I can see my teaching is complemented
Huh.
by those
Huh.
strategies.
That's great.
I recently facilitated a retreat of the entire diocese, the bishop and the wife, all the pastors and their wives or husbands, and all the staff in the diocese. And they had given me a subject I had not for 3 days, speaking on commitment in ministry. That was the hardest topic for me to prepare because you cannot speak on commitment without reflecting that you are committed when you are preparing. So I had to think a lot and how do I so I had to commit, I had to cultivate my own commitment in the preparation, but also elevate my sense of commitment in everything I do. And as I prepared, I learned of the 5 levels of commitment in ministry. I was doing research, So the 5 levels of commitment, that was profound for me. So it's if no one else benefited from the retreat, I did,
Ha ha ha.
because now I
Yeah.
think of everything that I do. What level of commitment am I operating at?
Huh. Huh.
So that was changing. And it was I don't know 6 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks, not too long ago. So that was reflective, impactful on my part. Of course, it looks like it was also highly impactful for the
Mm.
for the diocese there.
That is always so encouraging when you experience that impact after preparing something for another group. It's like, okay, if anyone got it, it's me. And then hopefully others took something
Yeah,
away too, right?
yeah.
That's great. That's so great. Well, thank you both so much for your time, for sharing so much of your story. We know there is so much more to that story, but God has been faithful and has been at work in amazing ways. And we know that He will continue to use both of you for His glory and for others' benefit there in Tanzania.
Thank you very much for having us, and thank you for the opportunity to share. It's always refreshing to respond to questions that bring to memory the things that you have gone through before. It's always a time to celebrate. You celebrate God's goodness, to celebrate. It really, for us as believers, it's not so much accomplishments as much as the grace of God that has propelled us to this point. So it's been a wonderful opportunity to be able to share. Thank you for the wonderful questions. Please keep asking them.
Aw, that's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Emmanuel, Ruth, Kian, and I serve with an organization called TeachBeyond. As you have heard, education plays a big role in missions, and TeachBeyond is a part of that.
As followers of Jesus, TeachBeyond is a global community providing transformational education services as part of God's ongoing mission to transform individuals and communities into all He intends.
Want to learn more and get involved? Visit teachbeyond.org or follow us on social media.
To help more people find the podcast and hear about TeachBeyond, we'd love it if you would leave a rating or review and share the show with a friend. Be sure you're subscribed or following the show on the platform where you listen so you never miss an episode.
And as always, you can reach us at podcast@teachbeyond.org. We'll see you next week.